Wow, it's a cold day here in Sydney. That happens, I guess, in October. September kind of comes through and it kind of surprises you with some heat and some dry weather and sunny days and makes you think that summer's here, and then October comes through and suddenly says, nope, not quite there yet. Come into the city just for another couple of meetings, catching up with 2 new introductions just from the network, which will be good. See where they go. This week is kind of ramping back up again. A couple of board meetings later in the week. Going to be catching up with the guys from Ticketless, which will be excellent. Really looking forward to the next 6 months there. And yeah, just working through some prep for quite a busy couple of weeks ahead. Got a handful of on-site visits with the boards in October, November. So looking forward to not only being there, but also trying to give you a bit of a picture of what those look like when I get there too.
One of the calls I had this morning was with one of the new CEOs I'm working with, and I'm on the chair of that board. We were talking about how to run a board meeting, and there's lots of documentation that you can access that says, this is the standard structure for minutes, and this is the kind of standard process you should take for a board meeting, and these are all the minimum requirements from a legislation perspective. But when I think about, from a director's perspective, what are the things that I want to get out of a board meeting, I break it down into 6 main parts. So the first one is, are we safe? So that's like a workplace health and safety update. Is everything safe? Any updates on that front? The second one is, are we solvent? Which is another pretty important point, but effectively that's a financial update, but relatively quick and punchy. Safe and solvent is like, have there been any incidents? Are there any corrective actions that we need to take? Are there any kind of massive missing parts to our process? No, everything's good. Excellent. Move on. We're safe. Are we solvent? Yes. Cash is in the right place. Cash flow statement is looking okay. Our working capital is managed well. So we're solvent. It's not trying to look for, upside opportunities. It's just like, are we alive? Are we solvent? Yes. And then the third point is, are we under control? And that kind of wraps up those first 2 by saying, okay, so if currently we're safe and currently we're solvent, then what are the controls that we need to put in place or we've got in place to make sure we stay that way? So with those 3 sections or those 3 primary questions, you basically take care of your threshold criteria. You've kind of taken care of all the hygiene factors. Then the second half of the main sections that I like to look for, I split into another 3 parts. The first is the business machine itself, so like an operations update. And the question there is, are we efficient? Are we efficient, and are we effectively executing the things we need to execute? And under that heading would be things like process improvements or system upgrades or training or anything else that we need to do to make sure that we're constantly evolving the efficiency within the business so that we're being as productive as we can be. The next one is people focused. So are we engaged? So what's happening with the team? Is the team engaged? Are there any people issues? Are there any niggles going on? Have we got some recruitment we need to do? Are there any disciplinary issues going on at the moment? But basically, do we have a team and do we feel like they're engaged? And then the third part to wrap that all up, and predominantly this should be the biggest section of the board meeting, the question is, are we aligned? This brings it all back together. So it's like, are we safe? Are we solvent? And are we under control? So yeah, things are where they need to be from a foundational perspective. And then the question is, are we efficient? Are we engaged? And are we then aligned to be able to move forward? And the alignment is, do we all agree on what the vision is? Do we all understand what the current business plan is? Do we know what the next actions are that need to be taken? Do we understand what the big rocks or the big projects are that need to be undertaken in the next 3 months or 6 months? And are we aligned behind those to make progress forward? So we went through that this morning from a board structuring perspective, and I'm interested to see, I take that lens to every board meeting I go into, regardless of the way in which that CEO or that board runs their meetings. I'm always looking to tick off those things in my head, but this will probably be the first time that I've had the opportunity to actually use that structure to define the way in which the board operates. And so I'm excited to see how that plays out, because for me, it feels like a nice, efficient way to get through the hygiene factors quickly on an exceptions basis, move through the business and the team to make sure that they're where they need to be, and then spend most of your time on alignment and strategy. So Ryan's going away to start to build that together. That meeting will be next Tuesday, and hopefully I'll get to report back to you guys on how that all played out.
So I know I've been doing a lot of desktop vlogging recently. Don't worry, I'm going to get outside pretty soon. I'm actually going to go grab a coffee with someone later. So you'll get a different perspective other than just my desk and my bookshelf. But just got off a call with one of the CEOs then, and a couple of things just came to mind that I thought it'd be worthwhile sharing. One was in relation to cash. So cash is obviously really, really important for the operation of every business, but particularly these smaller businesses, and quite often just in that first 12 to 24 months after acquisition, because you'll be dealing with the flow of the business in a slightly different way to the seller. And it just made me think of one attribute of understanding your cash flow that a lot of people miss. I'm definitely a fan of analyzing and going into detail. You know, the engineering me likes breaking things down into their smaller parts. But sometimes with cash, you can get lost in the detail. And sometimes the detail overestimates your ability to calculate reality. So, you know, it's like if I was trying to drill a hole in the wall and I measured to, 0.001 of a centimeter when I'm not capable of drilling a hole that accurately, right? It's the same with cash. Like, why forecast cash down to a daily balance if, the moving parts in your cash flow aren't that accurate in terms of payables and receivables and inventory and receipts and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, sometimes if you're trying to have a better understanding of your cash to date, where it's come from, where it went and everything in the period that's just gone, or whether you're trying to work out what's going to happen to your cash in the future, instead of trying to articulate a detailed periodic cash flow, weekly, monthly, whatever, which can be useful, also think about biting off a much bigger chunk. Do your statement of cash flows for the last 12 months. And I don't mean monthly for the last 12 months. I literally mean like, where was it 12 months ago? Where is it today? And what were the main moving parts? What did we generate or lose from operations? What do we generate or lose from financing? And what do we generate or lose from investing? Because those big chunks can really help you understand the general flow and direction of cash in your business. And you can also do that in a forecasting basis. So the other one, we were talking about the operation of boards, and particular non-executive directors. So non-executive directors are exactly that, non-executive. So they're not meant to be involved in the day-to-day operation of the business. They're there for governance, for monitoring, for risk management, for strategy, for vision, direction, sounding board for the CEO, all that kind of stuff. But often what we find is that in smaller businesses, both the CEO, particularly in a search fund operation, but also the business needs a little bit more support than what you'd see generically described as a non-executive director role. We talked about the establishment of a board charter or some kind of principles or intent. So how do we want the directors to show up to the board and to the CEO and to the business? And I think that it's something that I've been involved with before, particularly in big listed corporate entities around charters for that kind of thing, and also with my not-for-profit work. But I still, even though I sit on lots of small business boards, I don't think I've yet been on one where we've gone to the effort of putting together a charter. So I really like that idea and I'm going to have a crack at it. So over the next week or so, I'm going to try and pull together what I think is a simple charter for me and my co-directors on this particular board, and then see what comes out, because I think there could be some really interesting things there. So anyway, those two things just came out of a call, so I thought I'd let you know. But on to another CEO catch up now, and then out to get some fresh air and a coffee for a catch up with some other people.
So now it's a quick trip into North Sydney. It's always a convenient place to get to, don't have to cross the bridge. And so I do quite a few coffee catch-ups and grab a sandwich with a few people here. It's easy for them from the CBD if that's where they're coming from. I'm catching up with Cam, who has got a variety of experience, and I think he's thinking about some different ways in which he can engage with the ETA and the search community, in some kind of advisory capacity. And I think he's got some really good experience to bring to the mix. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got planned. There might be some cool ways in which we can work together in the space.